Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Adelia Ramasari, and we are here to present our poem analysis entitled Are You Digging on My Grave? By Thomas Hardy. These are the members of our group. First, me, Adelia Ramasari, Karenia Janah Dewi Prayogo, Maulidia Putri Megawati, and Sophie Nurmalasari. Are you digging on my grave, my loved one, planting root? No. Yesterday he went to wed one of the brightest world has bred. It cannot hurt her now, he said, that I should not be true. Then who is digging on my grave, my nearest dearest kin? No, they sit and think. What use, what good will planting flowers produce? No tendons of her monk can loose her spirit from death's gin. But someone digs upon my grave, my enemy, prodding sly, nay. When she heard you had passed the gate that shuts on all flesh soon or late, she thought you no more worth her hate, and cares not where you lie. Then who is digging on my grave? Say, since I have not guessed. Oh, it is I, my mistress dear, your little dog, who still lives near, and much I hope my movements here have not disturbed your rest. Yes, you dig upon my grave. Why flies it not on me, that one true heart was left behind? What feeling do we ever find to equal among humankind a dog's fidelity? Mistress, I dug upon your grave to bury a bone, in case I should be hungry near this spot, when passing on my daily trot. I am sorry, but I quite forgot. It was your resting place. This is the biography of this author. Hardy was born in 1840 and raised in the region of Dorsetshire, England, the basis for the Wessex countryside that would later appear in his fiction and poetry. Between 1865 and 1867, Hardy wrote many poems, none of which were published. In 1867, he returned to Dorchester, and while continuing to work in architecture, began to write novels in his spare time. Hardy became convinced that if he was to make a living writing, he would have to do as a novelist. Drawing on the way of life he absorbed in Dorsetshire as a youth and the wide range of English writers with which he was familiar, Hardy spent nearly 30 years as a novelist before devoting himself to poetry. In 1874, Hardy married Emma Lavinia Gifford, who would become the subject of many of his poems. Hardy's first book of verse was published in 1898, when he was 58 years old and had achieved a large degree of success as a novelist. Hardy continued to write until just before his death in 1928. Then I'm going to explain about the literary meaning. The summary of this poem: a dead and buried woman, wondering who dug open her grave. She thought it was her lover who was coming to show sorrow but her husband remarried, or her family who missed her, or even her enemies who came to mock her death. But none of them remembered and cared about her after she died. And finally she found the identity of the digger was only her dog who buried the bone by accident. She was lonely and disappointed by her expectation that someone will regret his death. She thought that her dog was the only one who cared to visit her grave, but she found out that the dog forgot about her too. The main subject of this poem is the deceased woman who wondered who was digging her grave because she hoped someone still cared for her even after her death. And the reason why the author wrote the poem are the, the author wants to convey irony in Victorian moral society to show how arrogant humans are and how someone expects things too much. He also wants to show that as a dead person who leaves no cherished memories while they are still alive will be easily forgotten by others because life must go on, and the expression that human always continues to live life and move on from those who died. The setting of this poem takes place at the grave, and after the woman died and was buried. It is shown in words, are you digging on my grave? The speaker's tone is humorous, curious, hopeful, and disappointed. By using a repetitive question, "Are you digging on my grave?" that shows humor, curiosity, and hope. The deceased woman hopes and keeps asking the question of who is digging on her grave. However, it also shows her disappointment that no one came to visit her grave, and the fact that the dog also forgets her, indicated by the words, "I'm sorry, but I quite forgot it was your resting place." I think that is all from me. The next slide and explanation will be presented by Sophie.
Thank you, Ardelia, for giving me the time. I'm Sophie Nurmazari, and I would like to explain about the poet's message and the central theme of this poem. The poet's message is to tell the truth that the dead will almost completely eliminate from the memory of a living. Life goes on for the living. As a result of that, we are gone and forgotten. No love or hate would outlast that. And the central theme is that people are easily will be forgotten after they die. The universal truth is that the author wants to share with the readers the fact that when someone dies and has not a good memory in others, no one will care or think about her anymore, and people will continue their life where the world is constantly moving on. And then the next is literary devices. The figure of speech of this poem is first personification. In line 3 and 4 of third stanza, nay, when she heard you had passed the gate that shuts on all flesh soon or late, it described the gate as if it is moving on its own and could swallow and devour all flesh. In line 5 of first stanza, and much I hope my movements here, it gives the dog a human feature in which what the dog doing was like a human, where the dog says that he hopes his sticking hasn't bothered the woman. And in line 6 of fifth stanza, a dog's fidelity, the dog given a rather human aspects, the act of loyal or what we call fidelity. From here, we can imagine that the woman praising the dog's loyalty, which she thinks that its loyalty is equal to a human being. And then the second is hyperbole. In line 2 of second stanza, my nearest dearest kin, it explains the woman expectation that she guesses her family or someone who is very close to her come to visit her. And in line 4 of second stanza, what good will planting flower produce? This line uh, gives some exaggeration that there is no benefit for planting flowers upon the grave and it is not useful. In line 5 and 6 of second stanza, no attendance of her man can lose her spirit from that gene. Uh, it explained that no matter what kind of action will not prevent the woman from death or bring back her from her death. And the last is synecdoche. In line 4 of first stanza, one of the brightest world has spread. It gives it explains that the woman's loved one, perhaps a husband or a lover, has married another woman who is wealthy or rich. In line 6 of first stanza, have not disturbed your rest. It describes the woman's state and using the word rest as a replacement for the dead. In line 2 of fifth stanza, "Why flashed it not to me?" It describes that the woman realizes about the one who is digging her grave. The poet uses the word flash to make the reader think like an idea that came to our mind as if it was a flash of light. In line 3 of fifth stanza, that one true heart was left behind. It gives the meaning that there is still someone who actually cares about the woman even though she is already died or already died. In line 4 of sixth stanza, when passing on my daily truth, the term daily truth describes the dog's routine walking activities and the dog constantly stopped at the woman's grave. In line 6 of uh, sixth stanza, it was your resting place. Uh, the word resting place is used as a replacement for the grave, so we can know that the resting place refers to the woman's grave.
Thank you, Sophie. My name is Maulidia Putri Megawati. I will continue delivering the next explanation, which is about symbols. There is a symbol we found in the poem, which is shown in the line, My loved one, planting rue. Rue is a kind of shrub that has a strong aromatic smell and a bitter taste. Rue symbolizes bitterness, regret, everlasting suffering, and sorrow. Planting rue on someone's grave indicates that we were saddened by the death of someone we knew well or even loved. Therefore, in this poem, the woman wondered if it was her loved one who dug on her grave because he felt sad over her death. The woman seems initially to believe that her death has caused the loved one grief and that she will always be strong in his mind. Then, does the poem contain irony? Yes, the poem contains situational irony, which is used as a plot device to make a twist effect. In the first stanza, in the second line, my loved one, planting rue, this sentence is irony, which describes an expression of sorrow who lost a dead person. Rue is a kind of shrub that is known as a symbol of grief. Planting rue over someone's grave means we mourn the loss of someone we know pretty well or maybe someone we loved. The woman seems to feel that her death has caused sorrow for the loved one, which is her husband. The second irony is in the third stanza in the second line. My enemy, prodding sly. The poet uses an expression of irony to describe the woman's enemy who came to her grave. The prodding means to squat down or lean lower. From here, we can imagine that the enemy comes to her as a sign of mockery of her death. The use of irony in this poem shows that the woman's expectation of being missed by someone, but no one seemed to have the same feeling. Instead, she found that her dog was the one digging, not because he missed her, but to bury his bone. The dog also added that he had forgotten she was buried there. Next, we move to the deeper analysis part. The first is about sound devices. The other sound devices that are included in this poem are alliteration and assonance. For the alliteration, the examples are, It cannot hurt her now, he said. This sentence is repeating each sound. Ah, no. They sit and think. What use? This sentence has the repeating the sound. Say, since I have not guessed. This sentence is repeating S sound. Your little dog who still lives near. This sentence has the repeating L sound. For the assonance, the examples are No, yesterday he went to wed. This sentence is repeating E sound. My nearest dear skin. This sentence has the repeating E sound. Nay, when she heard you had passed the gate. This sentence is repeating A sound. The second is the poem rhyme. The rhyme scheme of this poem is ABCCCB. Next, does the poem have meter? The poem does have meter, yet the meter is irregular as the accent falls on different syllables quite often throughout the poem. The meter that are in the poem are iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. All the stanzas have the same structure of meter, which is the first line in each stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. The second line in each stanza is written in iambic trimeter. The third line in each stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. The fourth line in each stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. The fifth line in each stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. The sixth or the last line in each stanza is written in iambic trimeter. Here we provide the example of the meter in the first stanza. The yellow letters indicate the unstressed syllables, while the green letters indicate the stressed syllables. The next is what specific words does the author include to help paint a picture in your mind as you read? The specific words are grave, loved one, dear skin, enemy, and fatality. By understanding those words, it will help us to recognize to who does the question revert and what the poem is about. The word grave, which is repeated several times, is where the woman in the poem is located at that time. The woman in the poem first asked her lover, next to her nearest family, the third one to her enemy, about who dig her grave. Besides, the word fidelity has the same meaning as loyalty reversed to her dog. But sadly, her dog only digs her grave because it wanted to bury a bone, not because it remembers her. Well, that is all from me. The next explanation will be presented by my friend Karenia Jannah.
Thank you, Lydia. Now, Karenia Jana Dewi Prayogo will talk about the allusion. Here we can find it in the line, nay, when she heard you had passed the gate. The phrase the gate seems to allude to the pearly gates, which are believed to mark the entrance to the heaven, or more loosely, heaven itself. According to some Christian denominations, the pearly gates is an informal name for the gateway to heaven. In this poem, the phrase "past the gate" refers to the death of the woman. We can say this poem is an allegory of pessimism in the human condition after death, representing the Victorians' belief. It represents a kind of situation when we will be forgotten by the people we knew after we die. People will always forget about someone who is already gone because their life goes on as time passes by. Furthermore, this poem has two moods, which are gloomy and disappointed. Why? This poem's mood could be described as gloomy because the poem is about death. It could also be described as disappointing because the woman has been forgotten by the people she used to know, where she felt disappointed because of that. However, we can assume that there is no correlation between the poet's life with the poem, since Thomas Hardy made this poem to satirize the Victorians' moral who always believe that the dearest kin will never be forgotten when they live or even die. We consider the phenomenon in real life that corresponds to the poem situation is the fact that all humans will face death sooner or later. And when that time comes, the people we love have no time forever to keep grieving the dead. Life goes on. Consequently, the people will be so preoccupied with their own lives. The poem's events point out that humanity's relationships are temporary, unable to face the break in continuity caused by death. For cultural reference, the poem refers to the Victorian's moral where in the Victorian era and early 20th century, Victorians believed that a family should be closely intertwined together and people are remembered in life as well as in death. The author satirized Victorian's moral and uses irony to reveal how even the most faithful among the living can dismiss the dead. From this poem, Hardy wants to show that no matter what, any person will be forgotten after his or her death, whether it is a week or over many years. How do I relate to the poem? This poem has shown me a reality that I will face when I no longer breathe and leave my beloved people. It makes me wonder whether they will remember me or not. Besides, well-known people or people who have a significant impact on society will remain to be remembered. However, ordinary people like me tend to be forgotten by other people because I do not play an important role in their life. It makes me recognize how grateful I am for some people or even a person who are willing to remember me for a long time if I begin to die someday. This is the last slide of our PPT. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.